Weeks after Justin Trudeau announced his decision to resign, the race for the next Canada PM has gathered heat. And a prominent name amongst the contenders is Ruby Dhalla, a Canadian politician of Indian origin. Ruby Dhalla is an accomplished woman who wears many hats. She's a businesswoman, a doctor and a three-time MP. And before starting a political career, she's even dabbled in acting. Many would be surprised to know that she even starred in a 2003 Bollywood-inspired film, Kyun Kis Liye. And joining us now is a person who has placed herself in a position of leadership, or rather the race for leadership of the Canada's Liberal Party, and also positioning herself in that sense as a future Prime Minister of Canada. Ms. Ruby Dhalla is joining us this evening. Thank you so much for joining us here on Times Now. Let me begin by asking you about what inspired you to run for the leadership of the Liberal Party and potentially become Canada's next Prime Minister, and to hopefully become the first woman of color to serve as Prime Minister.
I think it's 2025, and it's about time that Canada has a woman, of color from a multicultural community to be the next Prime Minister of Canada. We are a country that has been built, and helped with the support, the hard work, the vision and passion of immigrants, and being the daughter of an immigrant family, because my mom immigrated to Canada in 1972, I think it's so important to have the voices of diversity, not only in our party, the Liberal Party, but also as Canada's next Prime Minister.
Right. And how do you intend to bring the Liberal Party back into the hands of its members and return it to the centre with practical solutions?
I've actually been involved with the Liberal Party since the age of 14 years, and I have dedicated my life to public service. I have grown up in the party. I have worked on hundreds and hundreds of campaigns, knocked on thousands of doors, and coming from very humble beginnings, I have a deep connection and understanding of the many challenges, the struggles, and the sacrifices that average Canadians are going through and having to make on a day-to-day basis. And whether we talk about the issues of affordable housing or an increase in crime, or we talk about the fact that there are increase in food prices or increase in even cell phone bills. And also we talk about, Canada's standing on the world stage. There are so many issues that are impacting Canadians, our great country, and this is why I think we need leadership from a Prime Minister, from a leader that can understand those concerns and, most importantly, take action to getting the job done.
Absolutely. But, you mentioned the state of the world in that sense, and I want to take you across to what US President Donald Trump has been saying, because he's been coming out to say that Canada could be the 51st state of the United States. How do you see such kind of statements coming in from your neighbor?
Well, at times we don't know whether to laugh or what we should do, but I will tell you one thing, that Canada will never, ever be the 51st state. We are a very proud country. We are proud Canadians. And I think one of the, lessons that we are learning as a result of these, threats on the tariffs that are being made is the importance for us as a country, for us as a nation, to diversify our trading partnerships and relationships. Donald Trump and myself, we're both business people. And the one art that you learn in business is how to negotiate a deal. So as Prime Minister of Canada, I have committed to ensuring that I will sit down with Donald Trump and I will negotiate the best deal for Canadian workers, for the Canadian manufacturing sector, and for our country.
Right.
Simultaneous to that, I believe that it is very important that Canada also strengthen its relationships with many of the other emerging economies that exist globally to ensure that our workers in Canada, our businesses in Canada, and the manufacturing sector in particular have the opportunity to have those strengthened alliances so that we as a country are not beholden or dependent upon any one trading partner.
Right. Interesting that you mentioned that you'll work out the best possible deal, because it appears Donald Trump in Davos has already mentioned the deal that he has in mind, because I'm quoting him. He says you can always become a state, and if you're a state, we won't have to have a deficit. We won't have to tariff you. And he's threatened to employ 25% tariffs on Canadian goods unless the border security is tightened. What would be your policy to negate these tariffs from the United States?
I think the first part of it is to actually start having a frank conversation, because at the same time, as Donald Trump is threatening Canada with these particular tariffs, Americans living throughout the United States are also benefiting from Canada and Canadians, whether it's in regards to the electricity that's being provided, whether it's in regards to goods that are being provided. Any type of tariff discussion will and is going to have an impact on both sides of the border, and that needs to be very clearly understood. Sometimes when your remarks are made and it is set off of the cuff, one does not realize what is the impact into, average households, for families. How does this impact businesses? And the impact will be significant on both sides. If they implement tariffs, then as Prime Minister, I will also ensure that if we cannot negotiate a deal, but I believe that we will be able to negotiate a great deal for our country and Canadians, then we also have to take a look at retaliatory measures at the same extent and degree.
Right. I'm going to move across to, some of the issues that are, of course, very significant as far as India is concerned. And one of those is the number of separatist orchestrated events, a lot of which appear to be centered in Brampton, which is your constituency, because in November 2024, there was an attack by a violent group of men carrying flags of pro-Khalistani groups on devotees at the Hindu Sabha Mandir in Brampton. We've seen earlier a Hindu temple in Windsor, which suffered defacement with anti-India graffiti. There have been incidents in Mississauga and Brampton where temples were similarly targeted in the past. Even strong reactions from the Indian community there in Canada that have come in. In December 2023, gunshots were fired at the residence of the son of Satish Kumar, the president of the Lakshmi Narayan Mandir in Surrey. Why are these incidents occurring in your view? And aren't these concerning?
I think that, first of all, I am completely against any type of violence. I am against any type of terrorism. And I am against any type of threats being made to any individual for the religion and the beliefs that they carry. I am focusing this campaign on issues that impact Canadians, that impact our country, because there are many issues, as I've shared with you, whether it's in regards to affordable housing or increased food prices, increased gas prices. I mean, Canadians are really struggling, and I want to be able to provide that leadership that is needed.
All right. But is there any truth to the allegations that these incidents can be chalked up to the Justin Trudeau administration's alleged support for Khalistani sympathizers, including Jagmeet Singh? Until recently, he was part of Mr. Trudeau's government. And because of the numbers, the theory is that Mr. Trudeau was very soft on such elements. Do you agree with those allegations?
You will have to ask Mr. Trudeau, what his particular stance is. I myself am running for the leadership for the Liberal Party. I intend to ensure that I actually unite Canada, I unite Canadians, and at the same time that I also work with some of the biggest economies in the world, like India, like China, like Saudi Arabia, to actually strengthen our partnership. If we are always in constant dispute, we as a country cannot move forward on a positive note. I've done a lot of work internationally and relationships, and having productive conversations are very vital to ensuring that we actually create an economy in Canada that is competitive, that is innovative, to ensure that our Canadian workers and people that live in Canada have the best opportunities going forward. Right. I am against violence. I am against any type of threats, and I am against having anyone, being harmed for their religious beliefs and also their religion.
May I put this question a little differently? If you were in Mr. Trudeau's position in this election, if you are successful, would you then consider an alliance with the NDP at all, if you require those numbers?
I think that we have to work in the best interest, of Canada, and March the 9th is the election, so you can interview me again on March the 10th, and I will let you know the answer.
Okay, so no committed answers there coming in from your side. But let me also talk to you about the current diplomatic tension between India and Canada. It started in September 2023, where there were serious allegations made by the then Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau, that agents of the Indian government were responsible for the murder of separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Canadian citizen. But even after a year, Justin Trudeau, in a statement on the 15th of October 2024, says in a press conference that we started to understand through intelligence agencies that India was possibly, if not probably, behind Nijjar's killing. Isn't it really ironic that after a year of blame games, allegations, so on and so forth, Mr. Trudeau is still using the term possibly in a reference to India's involvement?
The only thing that I can comment on is that as the leader for the Liberal Party, and most importantly, as Prime Minister of this country, my full and foremost loyalty, my responsibility will be to Canadians and to our country to ensure their safety and to ensure their protection. Going back to your question, I think those are questions that will be better put, to Mr. Trudeau, who is currently Canada's Prime Minister. On March the 10th, when there are appropriate briefings given, to the new Prime Minister, and I hope, that is going to be myself, I will be able to comment, but I can tell you, going into this leadership, moving forward, I am there to ensure the protection and safety of all Canadians and of our country.
Right. Tensions have been escalating between India and Canada. We've seen diplomats being recalled from both the countries. In fact, Indian envoy Sanjay Kumar Verma, who was recalled after Canada labelled senior diplomats as persons of interest in the Hardeep Singh Nijjar murder investigation, made some startling revelations. He said that today almost every Canadian law and order vertical has pro-Khalistan elements, and this infiltration includes their defence forces and even parliament. Your response to this allegation?
Once again, I'm going to be focusing my campaign on Canadians, on Canada. My loyalty is to my country where I was born and raised. And I also want to say once again, having the safety and having the protection of Canadians is paramount. You're raising some, very significant issues. I think they are best put to the Prime Minister of Canada, who is currently Justin Trudeau. On March the 10th, with the new Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister will be taking, a new direction once they have information that is currently only available to the Prime Minister of Canada.
Right. One of the concerns, though, and this is going to be my last question on this subject, what India has been stating thus far is that there are at least 9 Khalistani terror groups, who reportedly have bases in Canada. That's the allegation coming in. And despite multiple deportation requests from India's side, the Canadian government has taken no significant action against those involved in heinous crimes, including individuals like Goldie Brar, an associate of gangster Lawrence Bishnoi, who's implicated in murder of a popular Punjabi singer Sidhu Moosewala. And even recently, the Ministry of External Affairs here has revealed that India has 26 extradition requests pending with Canada. How will you take, or will you be able to take a step to deport these people who India wants?
Well, I can tell you one of the announcements that I did make yesterday, which was for all of our country in terms of the direction that I intend, and one of the first initiatives that I intend to implement as Prime Minister of Canada is anyone who is in Canada by illegal means as an immigrant will be deported. Canada cannot become a safe haven for illegal immigrants coming in from all over the world. I am the daughter of immigrant parents who came to Canada in 1972. Our country has been built, on the vision, the passion, the determination, and the drive of many of these immigrants. Immigrants are an essence to Canada's fabric. But I will ensure that I take a stand of anyone who has come to Canada illegally and wants to stay. They will be deported. When it comes to the issues of peace, I want to ensure that we have a united country, a peaceful country. And I also want to ensure at the same time that the safety of Canadians and of our country is protected.
Right. And also, my last question to you, the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, was one of Donald Trump's first calls in the Indo-Pacific. India has now long been appreciated as a leader of the global South. And if elected Prime Minister of Canada, how would you approach ties with India and Prime Minister Modi? Because clearly this is going to be a very, very important area of work for you as well, notwithstanding, of course, your Indian origin.
Thank you very much, for asking that question. As I was saying, that in light of what is happening south of the border with Donald Trump, threats, if you want to call them, of Canada getting tariff charged of almost up to 25%, it really highlights the importance of Canada working with other countries throughout the world. The reality of the situation is India is one of the largest economies in the world. Canada has one of the largest diasporas of the Indian community living here in Canada. We need to leverage, that relationship, that commonality to be able to work together on a trade perspective so that our businesses here in Canada, we have many pension funds in Canada that are invested in India. So we need to ensure that we strengthen those trade ties, not only with India, but also other emerging economies throughout the world. And, we are actually in the process with my entry into this race. We're making history because it is the first time that a woman of Indian origin and a woman from a multicultural community is running to become Canada's Prime Minister and the next leader of the Liberal Party.
All right, Ruby Dhalla, thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us your perspective. We wish you all the best in your campaign ahead.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.